So good afternoon, everyone. So me and Brian kind of chose this. Me and Brian have family in Colorado, so we both blessed with family there. So we go there a lot. So we've really got to start fishing, the Front Range, and so we kind of got together and decided, hey, let's talk about our experiences.
Can you explain the Front Range to people like me?
Yeah, we're gonna go over all that, but yeah. So he's got a son that's in school in Fort Collins, and then my wife's family is from Longmont, Colorado, and so those are both what we consider on the Front Range, and that's actually where I got started fly fishing. Kind of took a guided trip up there, and then brought it back down here. So yeah, we'll kick it off. David's gonna take the first half. And then
Yeah, so we've kind of broke it up into, I mainly fish the upper section up near Fort Collins, that area, and we'll start with that. So the main drainages that I fish are the Pooter and the Big Thompson and some of the little small creeks in between.
Pete, to get back to the Front Range is considered just outside of Denver, west of Denver, the mountain, that's the Rocky Mountains in that area. So we're not going to cover anything in West Colorado. And all of these are the smaller drainages. Those all flow into the South Platte. So basically they're all South Platte tributaries.
Sorry, I missed that question. The Pooter is probably my favorite river just because it's a freestone river.
Which one?
The Pooter, the top, the Cache, the Pooter. Yeah, we just call it the Pooter. It's so it's a freestone river. It's one of the few. It may be the only, maybe one of the very few freestone, not dammed. There's nothing obstructing. There's a few. I guess agricultural diversions and stuff like that, but there's really no dams on it.
Yeah, like
So
all the
it's-
other ones here, the Big Thompson flows out of a dam in Estes Park. The St. Vrain has a small dam. Boulder Creek has a dam up in Nederland. And Clear Creek has a couple dams. But yeah, so the Pooter is the only one that's just free, no dam, no tailwater.
Yeah, and that comes with pluses and minuses, right? I won't get into all that, but I mean, there can be a lot of different variables with that. High flows, you don't have that control like you do with dams. You get a lot of sediment. Some things I want to talk about a little bit is when they had the fires in 2020. I was up there during that time, and we're now seeing the effects of that. Of how it affects fishing. Another thing I wanted to kind of talk about too, often overlooked. So this is the.
You may go back one?
No, this is good. So the urban fishery. I want to talk a little about the urban fishery, then we'll move up the canyon. So, being there with my son, I don't get the chance to just go fish all day, right? I got to pick my times, and so I've learned talking to fly shops that, fishing. This is all within Fort Collins. All these spots in green, even some of the ones in gray are accessible. There's a lot of access. And I literally can walk, from places we're staying, and we can catch trout. We can catch different, I catch mainly rainbows, but I've caught browns and a few brookies here and there. Just right there in town. You could literally go fish, walk, go to a brewery or something, or go get lunch or whatever, and come back and fish. There's a few people, but there's not a whole lot of people. But I just want to kind of touch on that. It's very convenient, and there's a lot of good fisheries on this. What I call more the lower Pooter or the in the city. So not a lot of big fish here, but they're not stocked either. So all these are natural fish.
What's the elevation?
So the elevation in this area on the Front Range is about 4,500 feet. So it's about 4,500 feet. So that's about where you start off in Fort Collins. Then we move up to, as you move up the canyon, you'll move up to about 7 to 8. So, within an hour, you can be up to 10, so you can move up pretty quick.
Yeah, I zoomed out a little bit, but yeah, Fort Collins is this map's kind of hard to see, but you know, the lower right half of the map is all the city, and then the highway follows it all the way. I mean, it keeps going up, so you can follow it up to the Continental Divide.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It's not. I wouldn't say the easiest river to fish because it's a freestone, but there's a lot of fish to be caught, and you can catch. I mainly catch rainbows and browns, but you'll have the occasional brookie, and you'll have the occasional cut every now and again. Very, very few. I haven't caught many of those, but I've caught a lot of the other ones. So very diverse. Also, I won't like this one park called Lee Martinez. That park right there, I fish that because we usually stay right there a lot. And that little place, I've never seen anybody fish it, but the guys at the fly shop told me, hey, go fish this area, and I normally catch, a couple dozen, not a lot, but, it's just right there, it's close. I mean, I wish we had something it makes me wish we had something like that here, right? All the waterways, But, yeah, there's a few warm water fisheries here too, some lakes and stuff that you can fish where they have carp and smallmouth and stuff like that. But yeah, so the urban fishery is fun. I do enjoy it, because it's so convenient, right?
And then once you get in the river, you can pretty much fish anywhere. I mean, there's not much fenced off.
So as this map shows, anywhere where you have the pink color, that's where you can't fish. It's off limits. So there are some places, but there are like some of the hatched areas that are catch and release. Most of it is catch and release. But in the city, there are a few places, but there's a lot of little parks. All the green places are parks, and those are access points. You can fish. I mean, there's plenty. I mean, I have not fished them all yet, and I go there, fish there quite a bit.
Does anybody in Fort Collins call it by its proper French pronunciation?
I was calling it the poudre, and then they kept correcting me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it sounds better to me.
It's clearly French.
and there's there's a story behind that. It's actually I don't know if y'all ever heard the story about it, but just quick. There was I think back in the early 1800s, they had hid a bunch of dynamite because they were about to be invaded, and they hid it along the Poudre because it was lined with trees, right? So they could hide it there, and so they hid it, and that's what they ended up naming. And that means, what is it? I don't know, but Poudre means
Powder, like a
like powder,
cache
right?
of powder.
In French.
Yeah.
So cache de poudre.
Yeah.
But I say that and they just look at me funny. They're like what? They're like, what?
No.
He said, oh, you mean a poudre?
Right? It's a dash of powder.
Dash of powder,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. So yeah, a little fun fact. Anyway, fun area. If you go to Fort Collins,
Interesting.
don't overlook it. It's pretty places. It's very. There's definitely fish there. Yeah. Go there.
The pink zones, private.
Yeah, there are some private areas, but the public access far outweighs, believe it or not, in there. I mean, there's so many places to go. I use Trout Routes app, and it shows you parking places, what's there, how to, it outlines everything. It's just an app I use, but I also have, like this book has been, what I use a lot, because what I'll get into a little bit, once you get in the canyon, you don't have any cell service, so you kind of lose that.
Are you waiting then?
Yes, all this is waiting. So yeah, it's not a very big river. During the fall, it's around 100 CFF. During the spring, it's about 200 to 300. During the summer, get up to 800. I mean, it's blowing through there. So, what was that?
Water temperature.
So the water temperature, it stays, it probably stays in the 60s, maybe high 60s during the summer, even during low water. Because you do get a lot of, the only thing that hurts it are some of the diversions for agriculture. Some of that warms the water up, but like when I fish it, I've learned bring a thermometer, because I don't want to fish anything that's higher than 65.
Right.
Just stress on the fish, But I haven't found it where it, but I haven't fished at midsummer either. But I fish a lot in the fall and spring before runoff. So yeah, so really with the Pooter, so this little brook right here is a little tributary that kind of cut off of the Pooter, and I found this, and man, that looks pretty, you know, and I was like, I don't know if there's anything in it, and I started nymphing around the set, and all underneath the cut banks is full of fish. They just sit underneath there and just, you know, then I threw a few hoppers, and they'll hit the hoppers. It's like they never ate before, you know, which was pretty fun. But yeah, it was just a pretty little creek right in the middle of the city.
I would have never thought to fish it. Probably doesn't get much pressure.
No,
you know?
no. Right along a walking trail. It was like a walking trail. People walk in there, and you know. So, yeah. Go next one. Yeah. So these pictures were taken in the last fall. So in October. So you know, this is about 150 CFF. This is pretty much low water here. You know, and it gets tough because the water's clear, you know, water's super clear. And, you know, but there's so much water, so much pocket water, it's very easy fishable, easy wadeable. You know, there's tons of access points, you know. I mean, me and Brian were talking about this the other day. You know, if I go to a spot and I see a car, if I can see somebody, I go to somewhere else. I mean, that's just why, I think that's why I fish this area so much, because there's just not that many people fishing, you know, and it's just, I don't really, you know, I fish some of the higher, you know, denser population of people. I just don't like fishing around a lot of people. It's just not fun to me, right? But anyway, so yeah, it's just it's a beautiful river, really is.
You know, like I said, I don't know the total mileage, but there's no dam. The highway follows it all the way up, like I said, at the Continental Divide. So, you know, you can just keep driving. And it's a real wide open canyon compared to some of the other ones. So it's not, you don't have to fish right next to the highway a lot. You know, you can get away from the road a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, so this is something I wanted to talk about too. So you see this was taken in April. So you see where the burn scars. We had a lot of fires in 2020. Didn't see a lot of issues the first year or two, but now as we have a couple of runoffs, sediment starts coming in. You know, and sediment is starting to affect it. It's actually changing the bug life, right? Because you're getting more sediment, you're getting more mud. You're having to the flies I was fishing before that were different than they are now. You know, there's always going to be your stone flies, that's your primary flies, and your midges. You know, that's the two that I typically go to. But you can throw a pheasant tail year round and catch anything.
Well, so they see in pH changes though too, huh?
Yep.
So that's a big
Yep.
deal too.
So I haven't seen it affect the numbers of fish. I mean, because I've caught, you know, I mean, we catch quite a few fish. You know, I haven't really seen an issue with it, but I have seen, you know, the sediment. I think it'll probably affect it. You know,
It's kind of like the Yellowstone fires.
yeah, same thing.
Great fishing right afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, but I think we'll start seeing. Actually, my son is doing it. He's a biologist, and they're doing a study on that. I wasn't able to get the results yet. He said he couldn't give them to me. I tried, but it would have been interesting to me to see what the study was. You know, and I'll share that when I could get my hands on it. But it's about how the fires, you know, affected the bug life, because he's more of an entomologist. So,
you know, you're talking about the impact on the ecology that fires might bring. What about the opposite, flood events, like Boulder Creek's flood a few years back? I mean, wouldn't that sort of just wipe it out for a few years or so, or does it come back that fast?
yeah, I think as far as
Or maybe people aren't aware of it.
No, that's
a major flood.
Yeah, you're right. It really, you know, being this is a freestone, it's known it floods all the time. It can be, you know, it can rain in the mountains, and a couple days later you got a high flood, right?
From what I
Something
understand,
like Boulder Creek's episode, what was that, about 5 years ago or so?
2013, I don't know if there was that one. 2013, there was a really big flood in the whole area. From what I understand, the fish don't really get wiped out. Like, they'll just go in the trees or something. But yeah, the habitat gets scoured out. So if they've done a lot of work on highway.
These pictures are taken Estes, but you know, it's really not that far. You're looking at about an hour drive, maybe an hour and a half to Estes, you know, from where we stay. But you know, it doesn't have as much access as the Poudre though. There's some access on the bottom end. You know, with help from like apps like Trout Routes and these guidebooks, you know, you can find all the access points that are public and private. There's a lot more private water on the Big Thompson, but there's a lot of bigger fish on the Big Thompson. A lot of really nice different species, but big fish. I know my son's roommates, they go there and they catch regularly 25, you know, to 27-inch browns on a regular basis, you know, but they fish it all the time, right? So I did, you know, this little stretch right here is in Estes. This is literally in the city. You know, it's a little park, and here you got elk right there. You know, I was kind of, when it comes set there next to me, once I got out the river, I didn't know what they were going to do, right? You know, because I'm not used to that elk just coming right there, you know, but that's normal, you know. But yeah, this little creek right here, I mean, this is right below the dam. As you go up a little bit, that you know, you'll see the dam with Estes Lake, and there's some big fish in there. You know, a lot of, like I said, there's browns and rainbows mainly in this upper section. Once we get down to the lower section, you know, I've caught tiger trout. I've actually caught a few, so tiger trout, pretty fish. When I was, this one day I fished with this guide, so I went with a guide on this private water, because I wanted to get my son a big fish, you know. I wanted to try to get him into it. And so that's one he caught on a size 20. So that one was 23 inches. So he got in the 2020 club on his second fish, right? Which I missed mine, right? You know, I didn't land mine. But there was a few of them in there. And right, that's low water. You know, that's definitely low water, not much movement there, you know. So it wasn't this little canyon area, you know, it was still difficult, but there was a lot of big fish in there, you know. So yeah, that was a fun day. He was very happy about that. And I still tease him about his big hair time, you know, when he had this big hair, you know, and a man bun and all that stuff. But yeah, so anyway, so yeah, right here, so the Big Thompson, this is like a tributary off. There's tons of tributaries off the Big Thompson as well that you can fish if you just got to really look for them. Like I said, you know, these books or Trout Routes or even, you know, that's going to be probably your best friend looking for these spots, because there is a lot of them. There's a lot of water in Colorado.
Is that east of Estes as well?
That is near that's almost to Loveland. That's on the lower end. Yeah, so that's all the way at the bottom. Because when you get in the middle, there's only a few spots you can really pull off that, you know, between Estes and, you know, the lower end. Yeah, you don't have a lot of spots you can pull off that are public water, you know, public access. So that's the only bad part of the Big Thompson, you know. But I'm starting to learn some more spots on it. Yeah.
So I fished in Moraine Park. I just looked, that's the Big Thompson too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more up in I guess the origin of where it's
Yes, so the headwaters, right? I call it the headwaters. You know, it's more above the lake. Yeah, so even you know, the Big Thompson, once you get in Estes, you know, you saw that little creek, you know, I mean that little section of it. If you go above the dam, you know, there's a few tributaries that come into that, you know, and you can literally go right there in the middle of the city and just, you know, I Euro nymph right there and just sit there and just catch trout right there. You know, so there's just tons of, I mean, to me it's mind-boggling the amount of fish you can catch in an urban environment, right?
And the places you could send someone you're traveling with off to go do something so you can stay.
So that's really my big thing with the Big Thompson and Estes. Wife love to shop, I like to fish. So she drops me off at a spot. I said, don't forget where I was. And then she'll go shop for 3 or 4 hours or 5 hours. I said, I don't care, stay all day. You know, and we do that a lot actually, you know. She'll just drop me off and come pick me up. And I'm happy as all get out. Just bring a lot of clothes, because, you know, we had, in April, I had it was 70 degrees in Estes, and I was like, okay, I just wear a short sleeve shirt, but I'm gonna bring my puff jacket, and, you know, I'm gonna bring some, so just in case. Well, clouds come over the mountains, dropped to 28, and it went, because I was looking at my app, we actually have, you know, access up there. Started snowing heavy, to where I could barely even see the other side of the river. I was still catching fish though. You know, then it went up to 70 again. That was all within 4 hours.
Doing some underwater?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, a lot of up there is, you know, stoneflies are really big pattern. I mean, that's what I probably catch a lot of my fish on, stoneflies. You know, this is some, I like, you know, versus my saltwater fish, I like heavy flies there, because you gotta, you know, get down in the current. You know, sometimes double tungsten beads is what I'll use a lot. You know, so you really want to get that fly down. You know, and I'll always put a trailer off of it, like a midge or something like that. You know, that's just been successful for me. I'm sure that's probably the basics, you know. But yeah, a few examples of the rubber legs is probably my favorite too.
You tied those?
No, I didn't tie those. I have some over there that I'll show y'all that I didn't have time to take pictures of and put them on here. Unfortunately, I've been busy this week, but yeah, I'll show y'all some of the ones that really work there. You know, they're very simple.
That's a hook guard on the first one, right?
I think it's a rubber leg.
It's rubber leg.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Perspective,
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's rubber leg.
So, yeah, but most of your fish up there, I made on my last trip. I hooked on a really nice one, and I let him get downriver of me, and you know, once they get downriver, those big fish, just if you can't get to them, they're hard to land, you know. So. Good. Okay. Let Brian get into this thing still going.
Yeah, so David covered a lot of the lower elevation parts of the Front Range streams, and I'll fish those too if I'm up there, like you say, in pre-runoff. So the seasons, runoff probably starts in late May and then lasts most of June into July. So the water's still kind of high right now, but it's going down. And then you can't really, there's snow all over the trails till about mid-June if you were going to hike anywhere above 10,000 feet. So like he's saying, the Big T or I'll fish the St. Vrain or Boulder Canyon or Clear Creek, all those streams have access along highways. It's, you know, not too hard to find. But once you get past into late July all the way through October, these upper elevations above 10,000 feet start to open up and fish really well. So the fish only have a few months to eat. So as you can imagine, they hit almost anything that they see. This is a map of Rocky Mountain National Park. All the way to the right, that aqua blue speck is Lake Estes and Estes Park. This top blue line is the Fall River, and then below that, as mentioned, is the Big Thompson and flowing through Moraine Park. And then down at the lower section, those boxes, those are a couple of areas where there's some high lakes. I'm going to go over those in more detail, but those are where the cutthroat are. There are cutthroat somewhat in the rivers and creeks, but a lot of rookies in the streams. The cutthroats really seem to thrive in the lakes. So this is Fall River. Fished there a few times. It can be a kind of an easy spot. You don't really have to hike. You can just park and walk, and it's just a flat meadow, meandering stream through, just like I said, a flat meadow. So you can fish a lot of undercut banks. Not a whole lot of boulders. Fish can be really spooky because it's so flat and clear. You got to really sneak up on them. But beautiful scenery. You know, you'll see cars driving around, but you know, there's not really hikers all around you because you're kind of off in the meadow a little bit. So if you're short on time or don't feel like doing a big hike in the park, and this is on kind of the less crowded side of Rocky Mountain National Park, Fall River is definitely a go-to. Any of these streams, I like to fish floating big foam dry flies like a chubby Chernobyl. And then if you want to drop a pheasant tail or something, the fly selection isn't crucial. I like the chubby Chernobyl because I can see it really well from far away and it floats really well, and the fish seem to like it. So the next one. So this is a hike that we did last summer. This was in one of those boxes in the lower section of that last map. We did a 6-mile loop, hit Dream Lake, Lake Hayaha, and another lake called the Lock. And this big elk, we turned the corner on the trail on the way to Dream Lake, and a massive elk just was grazing along the trail and then walked right in front of us. So you'll see plenty of wildlife. That's the closest encounter I've had with one. Luckily, it was just minding its own business, eating. Yeah, and just some general notes on fishing in the national park. Like I mentioned earlier, the key season is July through October. Now, since 2020, they've started doing a timed entry pass in addition to your just entry fee to the park. So you can go on a month in advance or like the night before, and you kind of buy a slot. So you pay $2 and you say, I want to go between 6 and 8 a.m. or 8 to 10 a.m. Just trying to keep not so many people from congesting in at one time. So it's kind of a pain, but then it's also, you can kind of bank on if you've bought the time slot that you'll be able to get in. So it takes a little bit of the worry away if you plan in advance. And then, it's crowded at first. So like down at the top of this map, as soon as you get out your car and into the parking lot, seems like people everywhere. And then the first mile or two, it starts to thin out. And then you hike a couple miles, you see less and less people. So if you want to get away from the people, just keep walking. A lot of people are there with kids and stuff, so they don't really have long attention spans or enough energy to really make it too far from the parking lot. So don't be discouraged. You see a lot of people at first. It clears out. Next one.
Yeah, I think that's true for a lot of the areas like we're talking about fishing. If it takes more than a couple minutes,
Mm-hmm.
or even less than 30 minutes, then there was nobody there. I mean,
Mhm.
that's for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So this was the first stop on that hike, Dream Lake. It's at 9,950 feet. A beautiful picturesque view. That's just the trail ends right at the front of the lake. And then you look to your left, there's cutthroat swimming. It looks like he's just floating, but that's just really clear water swimming by at your feet. They must, they see thousands of people every day, so they're not too shy. Not super easy to catch, but these ones were a little pickier, I think, just because this was right by the trail, but stripped a small soft tackle in front of one of them and got him to bite. And so again, this is a greenback cutthroat trout, as we learned earlier, and that's the state flower, the columbine there at the bottom. The next stop, a couple miles over from Dream Lake, was Lake Hayaha, a little bit higher elevation. And this year, the water was this kind of weird, I don't even know, greenish mint green color. I think they had an avalanche or a rock slide or something that year. And so with the snow melt, a bunch of sediment came down. I've looked at pictures this year and it's cleared up, so hopefully we can make it back. But this lake, for some reason or another, they stocked Yellowstone cutthroat in this one lake. I don't know when, but back in the day, so this is not a great example. The fish were all really washed out and silvery because that water wasn't very clear. So I'm interested to see if I can go back and catch one this year, if it'll be a little bit more vibrant colored. But really cool. I don't have a great wide view. That top right slide has kind of a wider view, but you're really kind of hopping from big boulder to big boulder to get out in the water and just cast. Kind of stripping a little olive damsel pattern just along the edges of these rocks, and was able to catch a few. Didn't really. Every now and then I'd see a rise or something, but you couldn't really sight fish because the water only had maybe a foot of visibility at the most. But really interesting, different landscape up there. And then the lock was maybe another mile or two from Lake Hayaha. Same elevation, but just a little bit over, I guess a little bit south. One of the prettier ones that I've hiked to. Again, this is the trailhead just spits you out right in a picture perfect photo opportunity. And then I walked out. This was after 4 miles and a lot of elevation, so I was ready to take a little break. Started fishing right here. Would have been better off probably walking away from the main trailhead, because while there was no one there when I first arrived, and I did see a bunch of big cutthroat cruising around these logs, sure enough, as soon as I got my rod all set up and threw the first cast, I think a pack of 4 unattended children walk up to me and ask me what I was doing, and were kind of in my back cast zone. So my advice is to, even if there's no one there at the moment, maybe don't start fishing until you're kind of a little bit off the main trail. But nonetheless, managed to catch some of the nicer
Do you
cutthroats
see a
I've
lot
caught.
of beaver dams up there?
Not up here. I mean, those are just some logs, but there are plenty of beaver dams in general up there. So I fished some beaver ponds a year or two before this, more by the Zimmerman Lake area, and caught a ton of brookies. But the beaver ponds are interesting. They kind of, depending on how long ago the beavers made the dam, the fishing can be either good or bad. I think it's really good a few years after, but then maybe like if it's been there for like 10 years or so, I think that they almost get overpopulated and stunted. But yeah, you'll see some beaver dams here and there. Worth fishing if you see fish. Click the next one. Yeah, so that was the one. So like I said, 6 mile loop. I think we did it in 6-ish hours. So we were moving pretty good. It was more of a hike and just stop and take a break to fish. And that's kind of a lot of this stuff up here is, especially, and I was with my wife, but you know, it's more about just being up there. You can get up there, it's 50 degrees in the mornings, and so I enjoy hiking. The fishing is kind of almost just a bonus, and the fish are not super picky, so you know, you can go wear them out if you really want to, or you can just keep walking and on to the next adventure. One more area, not in Rocky Mountain National Park, but it's farther south, so it's more outside of Boulder, whereas Rocky Mountain National Park is more near Fort Collins. It's called the Indian Peaks Wilderness. So the Indian Peaks Wilderness, I think at one point was supposed to be part of Rocky Mountain National Park. So it's got a lot of the same protections in terms of, you know, it's all public forest land. They limit the camping and the uses of it in so many ways, but it gets less crowds. And so there's one area called the Brainerd Lake Recreation Area, and it's got 4 lakes and a bunch of streams. And it recently also fell under that same timed entry permit system. So, you know, go online, recreation.gov, you can buy that timed entry permit before you go and kind of guarantee yourself a parking spot. Go to the next one. And so here's kind of the lay of the land. So there's the 4 lakes to the left are the 4 main fishing lakes. The one to the right is Brainerd Lake. There, I haven't really fished that much, but again, that's right by a big parking lot, so there's just a lot of people swimming and kayaking and stuff, so you're better off just hiking up to some of these 4. So at the top, we have Mitchell Creek, which flows up to Mitchell Lake, and then all the way at the top left is Blue Lake, and then down at the bottom left, Lake Isabel, and then bottom right, Long Lake, and then the South St. Vrain flows out of Long Lake and then flows all the way down into Lyons. The next one. So the good thing about this spot, it's a little less crowded, well, much less crowded than Rocky Mountain National Park, but the main parking lot is already at 10,300 feet. So you drive up to the high elevation. So if you don't want to do long hikes but still get up to some high elevation streams, this is one of the easier options. Like I said, all the lakes are within, 2 or 3 miles tops one way to the upper lakes, and then there's streams connecting each one. I've caught only brook trout up here. There are cutthroat in the upper lakes and in some of the streams. I haven't really found any yet. Click the next one, David. The streams are mostly pocket water, so unlike that Fall River, which is just a meander in the Rocky Mountain National Park, which is a meandering stream and a flat elevation, these are steeper gradients. So this pocket water, what we mean by that is all these, behind every little boulder, there's a little pocket of flat water. And so it's almost guaranteed a fish in any flat water that you see. So again, you'll notice all these fish have chubby Chernobyls hanging out of their mouths. You don't even really need to false cast or cast more than 15 feet at a time. You just plop the little thing down in a piece of flat water, keep it sitting there, and something will usually come up and smash it. So pretty easy fishing, pretty little brook trout. They can be pretty diverse in their coloration. Some are dark, some are kind of light, but really aggressive. This is Long Lake right here on the left, and then that's the stream coming out of Lake Isabel up at the top, and another brook trout. Again, really picturesque. You don't really have to get off the trail, just pull your phone out or pull your camera out, and it's hard to take a bad picture or hard to not catch a fish. So easy place to enjoy yourself, I'd say. And then this is Mitchell Lake on the left, and that is a brook trout that was caught in the Mitchell Creek right below the lake. I haven't really seen too many moose up here. I know there are signs of them everywhere, but I've only seen them from a distance. But I'm always looking around when I'm wandering some of these marshy areas. I think one's going to sneak up on me. And just some general fishing tips. The pocket water, like I said, the chubby Chernobyl is kind of my go-to for that, but certainly an elk hair caddis, you want something that was maybe had less synthetic materials, would probably work. For the lakes, I like to use small streamers, so a little olive damsel. Just cast it out and just kind of slowly strip it back. I've had good days where, just catch fish after fish after fish, not necessarily seeing them, but you just cast and retrieve till one hits it. And then if they're being a little bit more picky, this one on the bottom right is called an orange asher, and that's a size 16, but it's basically just orange thread with a hackle wrapped around it. I guess it's supposed to be a midge. If you put floating on it, it would float, but I let it sink and then slowly strip it back. So like that one I showed you that was in Dream Lake, just right there in shallow water by a bunch of people, something subtle like that sometimes. We'll get them to bite if they're kind of turning away at some other stuff. This is more of a hiking trip than a wade fishing trip, so you're going to pack more hiking gear than fishing gear. So good hiking boots, a backpack with a rain jacket, almost like clockwork every day at between 1 and 3 o'clock. You'll start hearing some thunder. Their afternoon thunderstorms are very common there, so be prepared to sit under a tree if you're not too close to your vehicle. I've had to do that once or twice. But yeah, just be prepared, plenty of water, rain jacket, bug spray. There could be some pretty gnarly mosquitoes. One of these, last summer we hiked up to one of these upper lakes, and we had to run away almost as soon as we got up there. We were just coated in mosquitoes, so some bug spray or a buff can come in handy. One more. This is logistics, just kind of for the whole thing in general. We probably covered some of all this, but get there early. This is at a trailhead that's not even, they're all well known to locals, but even by 6 in the morning, just kind of a nondescript trailhead somewhere, it's going to have cars in it. Not nearly as many fishermen as you fear when you see a parking lot like this. I walked up with another guy with a fly rod. We had a nice chat for a mile, and then I never saw him again. It's people walking their dogs or hiking or doing other stuff. So even if the parking lot's full, just keep walking. You'll find some open water. Non-stop flights Southwest from New Orleans to Denver are not too expensive, very reliable. We never pay more than $250 a person. You can check a bag for free. I usually carry on. Lodging, we're not too far from a lot of big cities like Boulder and Fort Collins and all that, so you can pick a hotel, Airbnb, whatever. A lot of restaurants and breweries and all that kind of stuff, so it's a good place to go if you want to bring someone else with you and maybe get a little fishing in, or if you're traveling for work and want to, dodge out for a day. There's a lot of places to fish. So.
Yeah, I just want to comment on that. So, it is, these areas are really easy to get to as well. So, I just got some tickets for a ride at like $205 round trip, really, really inexpensive. It's about Fort Collins is an hour away from Denver, so it's really not that far, So, and I typically stay in Airbnbs a lot of times, I've stayed with my son and his roommates. It was fun, but I stayed in Airbnbs. But yeah, it was good. Yeah, so it's really I didn't realize till I started fishing up here years ago how easy it really was. Just to hop on a plane, get there, get a rental car, go, and I want to get into more of what Brian's doing, and as far as the hike in the high country, I haven't done a whole lot. I've had to stick more just because of family. I don't want to be away from them too long, but there's still a lot of opportunities, a lot of accesses, easy accesses, to where you don't really have to hike with new people.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was something within train distance of that too. I know there's hiking within distance of the metro or whatever the trains called there, so.
Yeah, I mean, Golden is not far, and then we didn't cover it, but down in Morrison where Red Rocks is, I mean, there's little streams everywhere, it's little parks. I mean, yeah.
Rent a car
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
transportation there is so much better than
I will say, I had a friend that lived in Colorado Springs, and a lot of those famous rivers you hear of, like 11 Mile Canyon, all that stuff, can get crowded. That's the areas where you're going to be shoulder to shoulder. You're going to catch fish. You're going to catch big fish, but it's a lot of people. So it's kind of a trade-off. I mean, I think like me and Brian, we fish alike. We like to be, solitude. We like to don't see anybody. But yeah, so it's really easy. I typically start fishing in April, and my last trip is in October. Because once you get to those, that weather gets too unpredictable, and even in April when I was up there last, I drove up to they have a hatchery up there where they use to put on all the lakes, fish all the lakes, and literally it was froze over
Yeah.
in April.
There's always open water, but yeah, one time I was there for Christmas and went up to Estes, and my guys started freezing up. I was like, yeah, it's not worth it.
Once your guys start freezing, it's not any fun anymore.
It's not fun. So.
But yeah.
Are you
Click.
bringing your rods with the carry-on?
Yeah, well, I keep rods up there because my in-laws live up there, but it's no problem. A rod tube you can carry on. They count it as just like, they don't even count it as an extra item. I mean, I keep it in a little thing. It slides in my backpack, but fragile items like that, they're not going to give any trouble, and they don't take hardly any space in an overhead bin.
I put
Yeah.
my reels and my flies in my carry-on, but I haven't tried a rod just in case they wouldn't let me get through security or something.
Yeah, I've flown all over the place with rod tubes and see them everywhere. Yeah, no
all
issues.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I've been thinking about a 10 pound rod. So
Yeah.
it would fit in my carry.
Right. Yeah, I've 4-foot rod tubes. Yeah, never had anybody say anything.
Yeah, I see people doing it all the time. I typically bring so many rods. That's my problem.
Yeah, if you want to bring a lot, then
Yeah, I mean, I'll bring a tube and I'll check it, and I've never had a problem. I've never had a problem with it.
Mhm.
I've had a few times where it's been a little delayed. I got a little worried, but I don't.
And that's the good thing about the summertime fishing. I also keep waders there because I don't like to have to deal with all that. But I don't even use them during the summer. A pair of Chacos or something. You're hardly in the upper elevations. You don't really need to get in. At least where I'm fishing, the streams are so small. I mean, sometimes it would be nice to get to that one spot over there, but there's plenty of water you can just kind of hop through. And,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really go over knee deep ever.
Yeah.
To be honest
yeah.
with you. I mean.
Any comment on Clear Creek?
Yeah, I fished Clear Creek some. It's got good access. They just opened like a really nice long trail right outside of Golden, so there's a ton of access right now. Yeah, I've heard it's good for browns and rainbows. Click. I've got one or two more just general resources. Just some fly shops in the area and some guidebooks. But I should have put breweries on there too, but you can find that for yourself. Yeah, every town's got a little fly shop, so stop in if you want to ask for some specific info or get a hat or something. I like just checking them out and chatting them up a little bit. Always friendly.
Yeah, and I'll say I've learned a lot going to the fly shops and talking to them, and they'll readily share. Hey, they're like, look, these are the patterns it's working right now. You know, if you go up to this area, you know, they're really, you know, willing to share information. You know, so you go to local fly shops. I always buy stuff, right, to support that. You know, the local fly shop. You know, but every time I've gotten it, you know, advice, hey, they say go up here, do this. I've always caught fish. So I mean, it's really good. You know, it's just different. I guess, you know, we're down here. You know, the general public, they're not gonna share. Up there, they're more willing. I think they're more willing.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, they're not going to recommend the most secret spot, but
Out, the great places, they all share information.
Exactly.
Buy a fly and then you get
Yeah. It's just a whole different environment, you know, and I really enjoy that, you know, you know, that part of it, yeah.
that's all we got.
Any other
Any
questions
questions?
or-
Yeah.
Comments?
very good, very good.
Thank you, John.
All right.
Thank you. On boots.
I've used rubber and I've never held any issues, but again, if I'm wading, it's usually not I don't wade during high water times, usually in like the spring or so. It's not, yeah, but I don't think they have problems with the slippery rocks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing. So, you know, yeah, that's a good comment, good question though, because, you know, when I fish some of these lower waters like in Arkansas and even you got to almost have studded felt, you know, you just do because it's so slippery. But up there, I find I've never had that case. I mean, I walk across these rocks, you know, sometimes I use rubber soles now.
But a lot of times they won't let you because of the
Yeah.
worm disease and all that stuff. And I don't know if that's still the case.
Yeah, I don't know on the restrictions that there might be, but yeah, I haven't ever felt the need.
Yeah,
for
I
anything
asked
but a
that
rubber
question
sole.
and they haven't really, they said that some people use boats is what they prefer. They just like you to clean them with bleach and stuff like that, all your gear, not just, you know, but, you know, I find the rubber soles better than the felt myself. I just think they're a lot tackier, you know, on the rocks. But,
All right. Good. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys.